Welcome back, everyone. 皆さん、お帰りなさい。今日は164日目です。It is day 164. We are in our limbo period before completing all of these, right? And I am not quite sure what I'm gonna do with 8 p.m. tomorrow. Kind of delayed a review from yesterday because I wanted to highlight something that was happening in WaniKani, and the content updates, like the roadmap, was posted. Apparently this isn't necessarily the first time they have done this, so they kind of mapped out, the WaniKani team, the content team had mapped out what they're going to do from July, like June all the way to like mid-July. So I did notice there was 3 new kanji editions eventually across. I think the next update has a kanji that is not part of one of my levels, and yeah, they're shuffling, they're adding new vocabulary, so they move things a little bit around. And that lesson I got was a move and not necessarily a new, but it's nice to see that content is being added, and also kanji. That's really big, actually, adding kanji. I'm curious how quickly these things happen, but this is the first time it has happened that impacted like the overall move and stuff. When it comes to primary meanings and secondary meanings, personally, not too that affected. Generally speaking, whenever I'm learning something, over time, the meaning and like the associated attachment, like the story, the use cases and whatnot, they begin to elaborate and elevate and become more complete over time. Generally speaking, I rarely adhere. That's why I lean on double checking and a little bit more dynamic things, but that is, double checking alleviates that largely because I get to see the targets that I hit around it. Generally speaking, a lot of times when I think of SRS, it can be I can sympathize with individuals who find it very annoying and or quite literally deal breakers when they are so focused on explicit one-to-one consistency, and I tend not to. I actually become less and less literal one-to-one over time, so that can be both a pro and a con. Yesterday, when I was talking to someone randomly during my Duolingo Spanish session, it was trying to present that idea where it's interesting when you learn something in its original context, right? And that original context is not the same as what is native, what is whatever you believe is right, however you're compartmentalizing. The idea is when I learn something, eventually, most of the things I learn attempts to connect with everything else. So this person, apparent by coincidence, have overlap with me in interest in Spanish, Chinese, and being an English speaker. So it was really a fun opportunity. However, it turns out that that person and I obviously contrast in the way we integrate memory and associations. So often this person seems like they believe that things should be compartmentalized, and that's part of their routine. So it would be interesting to contrast with that person in the future, on and off, about how they're going about doing that. For myself, it ties into this WaniKani or SRS in general. If I so choose, I often lean on whatever I know, and I typically go through the process varying times. So over time, when you have these words, right, you have these cards, and they may change over time because there are people who make these apps for you and do these background research for you for a cost, of course. So you're paying for this service. These things are expected to change over time and or be improved over time, much like the desires of people. So when someone says, I want this to mean this because it's more accurate for now, right? Much like when you ask for criticism, like you're like, oh yeah, you should really change this to this meaning because that's what it means now. The flexibility of someone able to say, oh yeah, you're right, let me go change this, is also the very same reason that someone may come up with a primary meaning that doesn't agree with you initially. So for myself, that is more my natural state than a state in which people focus quite literally on compartmentalizing and almost hyper-focusing most of the time, right? And it definitely works for those who want to keep their stuff very tidy when it comes to memory, largely because interference is a deal breaker for quite a lot of people. On the topic of interference, I kind of walk in the face of interference in order to take the extra effort to leverage the interference. So behaviorally, that can come off as off-putting for individuals who do not resonate with that. And that is probably going to be more of a background, heritage, motivation. Like it's multifaceted, right? In terms of people's feelings about how memory either produces interference or strengthening. And that is a compromise. So when it comes to communicating, in my opinion, finding ways to manage interference or mitigate interference, perhaps for unintended consequences, while leveraging the importance of how you can stack and layer memories, allows one, in my opinion, to communicate fluidly between creative tangents. So when you're trying to get from your discussion from WaniKani to a discussion about Duolingo Spanish, and then looking and comparing, contrasting the details while overlapping parallelisms and contrasting differences, right? Those require that you tackle things in a way in which they overlap memory-wise. So oftentimes when someone wants to execute on the fine points of a single language, it's understandable that you would compartmentalize the language from every other language. And I see the pragmatic use case of those, especially in the area of efficiency, promoting purity in your communication style. However, for myself, in my opinion, that interference that you can potentially gain far get outweighed by how quickly your retention is in your memory. But the output may be leaving less to be desired. And I think people who focuses on the end results probably would find that a little bit too effortful. You don't want to interrupt your dialogue, but I'm curious about your WaniKani scripts and in general, how you go about using the SR system and what you've customized to your personal approach. Mark, I did try to cover this in the 100-day review. So But I did change no, actually I didn't change too much of it, but I can go over it very quickly. And then the next on day 200 will cover whatever changed between 100 and 200. But I can cover it very quickly. If any of this, if you're already familiar with WaniKani scripts, then this would be very quick. So the videos are obviously really long, so those are more explicit videos. But if you're familiar with WaniKani scripts, this would go pretty quick. So I use double check. Rendaku information. Last, so the new one. Oh, you personally tune your, okay, so here we go. Then these would be very quick, right? So double check, Rendaku, pitch pattern, context sentences. Obviously something darker, dark background. And then I tweaked a bit of the color and where this stuff is. But in terms of like specifically how I use the script is probably DC. Oh, and back to back. Rendaku, these 5 are the main ones, and it has been the same since day 100, so up to now. The dark background is a little bit later, just because Hanzuhiro, I kind of link with Hanzuhiro in this regard. I might be missing one thing. Oh, there are other things, but turns out the feature is not that. I don't really use it that much. But how does this affect the experience, right? The SRS system. Because of the double check, I don't usually make mistakes. And what I mean by mistakes, I'm talking about mistakes in terms of WaniKani. So we don't like bop the reset timing, so we don't affect the space time too much. And then coming up, there's a compensation for this, but I'll discuss it when it comes up in as well as 200. But for now, DC is used liberally. So if I can figure it out, I can figure it out, right? Regardless of how long, how many tries, even process of elimination, which really isn't how it doesn't really help too much when you use process of elimination, unless you're willing to like stack and bootstrap through ons and kuns, which it's kind of a tier system when it comes to what is considered difficult or loose. So let's just go that quickly. So tier 1 is feeling, and going down is bad. So going down is bad. So tier 2, or let's just go A and B because they inherently have things. So tier A is feeling. I hit it, feeling good, right? Even if I have typos, this is independent of typos because of double check. So tier A is feeling alone. Tier B is mnemonics. And then tier C is process of elimination. There is a little bit here. Maybe I'll call this tier B and refer to this as C and D. But there is prior knowledge or outside knowledge, outside association. So every time I get a review, it's either going to be hit feel. That's great. Even if it's wrong, it's usually a typo. So I would look at it, do the feel, see if it locks in, and that's fine, right? And if it's not fine, so that's not fine. Then we go to prior associations or outside. Like, do I already know this? Is there something story related, experience related that I can play back that's related to this that WaniKani does not provide, or I have come to become associate with? Like, sometimes keywords I would say during the review would be, this is special. I clearly remember stopping on this, it's special. Or this is the 4th time this has come up, roughly speaking, where I paused. So something is making me pause. That is the 2nd tier. So if I have that feeling, it means it's still strong within my memory. And then if this fails, then we go to tier C, mnemonics, which is usually whatever I can scrounge up with WaniKani. So I'll see there's a crab, crab with a leader. And then what do I know about leaders? Do I have a keyword that is a near rhyme for the mnemonics? Then that's tier C. This is where I start, the time increases. So as I'm going down, delta T is going up. And it is at this moment is where I would use move to later. So where's move to later? Oh, yeah, move to later is the most recent addition. This is not reviewed in the day 100, so this is a new one. So I would then immediately shift those guys to the end of the stack, because the end of the stack would allow me to do a, it's kind of tier D, but let's move this further down to tier E. And there's a tier D in between right here, where I move it to later to do like a blank, a memory blank. So sometimes if you're looking at your web of thinking, right, you can hit A and then it can split into B or C. You're like, all right, I know this much. Now it's either related to this or related, it's either related to B or it's related to C. The problem is C never takes you back to B. So what happens is if you go down C and you keep thinking downstream of C, the answer could be in the B path and you're just locked in. So what happens is you move it to later and you hope the blank and then start over. Start on A and now take the other path. So this is kind of related to process of elimination. So at all else fails, I go over my on and my kuns, which you'll see at the very end where all the move laters. So at the end of a review session, typically there will be, I take roughly 3 out of every 100. There will be like 3 moved to the end out of every 100 review. Eventually though, through the process of elimination, which means I go over all my reads associated with the character. So this is the brute force. At the very end, the brute force method is me repeating and practicing everything that I know, that I can possibly remember, regardless if it's related or not, in the sense of, is this the right meaning or something? I'm trying to capture as much as possible and then get the answer. So overall, what happens in the end of the day is I do not have mistakes in the sense of I need to reset the mistakes. Now, there is a downside to this approach. Burning is coming up. So on June 23rd is my first, or June 25th is my first burn item. We're gonna do burn reviews. So burn reviews are gonna be coming at like stacks of hundreds, right? Or not stacks of hundreds, stacks of 50s. So 50 things are going to be burned in stacks. And we're going to, at the end, we're going to be doing burn review. And burn review uses the same tier system. So I look at all the burn items at the end of a burn day, right? Which is coming up, the 25th. And I'm going to look through the tiers. If the burn... if the burn happens, right? And I want to do this right away because I don't want to... Oh, okay. And there's more to talk about how burn reviews are going to be done. There's a... I'm using like a 5-step process for burn review, but that will be covered later. So know that when I say burn review, it's like a various amount of steps. But in the long run, what it's trying to do is revive immediately in groups and associated groups the ones that I am below tier B. So if I look at a word and it's below tier B, as in I don't have a feeling or I don't immediately know from outside source or anything that's outside, you know, just lock it in, then they don't stay burned. They get resurrected immediately. Well, not immediately. There's a filter for this. If they get resurrected, paired up with another burn item that is related to it, which goes down to tier C to E. So if this burn item, I immediately think, okay, I'm gonna have problems with this. So now before reviving it, I need to figure out what is in WaniKani that is already burned that will be associated with it. Now this could be 2 vocabulary words. So it won't be revived immediately. It will be when that other vocabulary word or that other thing is also burned. Usually, how WaniKani is already arranged, there should be something associated with it. That's the nature of WaniKani. Or it could be slightly close to it, like the next group, right? Because there's that stagger period. This stagger period. You know how you have half of the vocabulary words unlocking with a character? So I will wait till both the items are burned. It could be like 2 separate vocabulary words by 4 levels. I will wait for whatever is connected. Then I will resurrect those 2 at the same time. So they would be synced together, which creates a C to E tier system to reinforce tier A and tier B consistency, especially tier B consistency. The reason why I have this tier system is that's how I gauge my memory. If I'm relying on mechanical, like process of elimination and scouring stuff, it's loose, it's nebulous, and it keeps going up. Eventually, it gets to a point where I can start with feeling, and it'll be the fastest, and it'll go down. And that's true for nearly anything I have to remember. So typically, I want to stay in this territory. So that's what we're doing soon. And there's another thing, back to back. At first, I thought it was great to randomize it, right? But eventually, I found that I could challenge myself in a different way to get the randomness of memory. So I removed the back-to-back is I want to do read first all the time. It has to be read and then all the rest follows. So the moment I read something, I should be able to do everything else. Below the random associations and mnemonics, but when I look at a character, I want to hear, see the image, and be able to read it immediately. So I removed that nonsense, and it was kind of inspired off Hanzahiro. Hanzahiro does this by default, and then Hanzahiro does double check by default. So how do I compare originally? I made these changes by comparing Hanzahiro and WaniKani's design. And in terms of Rendaku, this is extra information. This bolsters B. and C. So B and C, right? Technically it's B because WaniKani does not provide it. And then a pitch accent pattern. It provides tier B, right? Tier B and tier C, but it's really not WaniKani, so it's tier B stuff, pitch accent, because I'm sensitive to hearing. And then context sentences is provided by WaniKani, but it's actually B as well, because I only default, oh, I forgot. Yeah, so you see that I don't use WaniKani's things until I have to. So for lessons, this is talking about review process during our review sessions. For lessons, I'm acquiring something. So when I'm learning something, it's a different process. WaniKani comes first. So maybe I'll do something about lessons, but you can imagine what lessons may change with this. Then the tier A through E, tier A and B doesn't exist. It's tier C first. So tier C becomes the first process I do, which is when I get a lesson, I need to immediately first think in the process of encoding what WaniKani typically does. So that involves the first 3 days. The first 3 days after a lesson, I would go at the end of each day. You'll see me draw you'll see me write I don't know, attach. So I'll do this for 2 days or just once, writing this, and then the second day we move on to simplified shorthand. And this one I would talk about the read near rhymes because it's the weakest one. So I want to immediately reduce all the WaniKani, you know how WaniKani does a huge paragraph. So, or not a paragraph, but sentences. Immediately after the fact, I wanted to reduce it into one word. And then that one word is usually the read. That read often gets me to the meaning. Usually it doesn't require the meaning, largely because the meaning is encoded in English. And English is almost immediate because of the way I think about associations. So I typically focus on, for this, it would be yogurt. Or, yes, it would be yogurt. And the reason why I start with this is because this is a skill that I don't have. It's something I need to practice. This is something that the content team is doing uniquely that I am terrible at. I don't use this type of thing. I don't use near rhymes to remember reads, especially near rhymes in a different language. So on the first day I get the lesson, I write out all of the near rhymes. So now I have a database of centaur, the stuff that people inherently, intuitively like or dislike, but it works. But I want to know why it works or how I can leverage it. So now I can create mnemonics that are in line with WaniKani if I need to change it, but not change it to the sense of it's different from all the other ones, because I kind of want to get used to it. So, you have centaur, yogurt, was, chol, jol, joe, all the near rhyme stuff, like knock, right? What does knock stand for? What does coat stand for? That type of thing. So I do that. So I created a second cipher. I worked on a second cipher. So for lessons, a little bit different, but it is still in the process of tier C. So whenever I rely on tier A and B, it means I've internalized it. My associations are integrated with whatever is down the line. So eventually when WaniKani, when I focus on WaniKani's mnemonics and stuff, it eventually becomes part of tier B, which is it's locked in and interacting with my other memories, like my Duolingo Japanese experience and whatnot, my past experience. So then they no longer are treated like some mnemonic or secondary process. And eventually, you know, ideally you want everything to be A, but I don't typically rely on feelings exclusively. I'm constantly learning. So if I'm constantly learning, then there will be some aspect of not relying on feeling. But for now, I would say on average, I have a bottom line of 80% feeling. So the first thing I do is I look at it, what does my gut tell me? I'll just type, right? And this is 80% in terms of accuracy. So this is bottom, as in bottom line. It can't be lower than 80%. If it is lower than 80%, I gotta do something about it. It's not acceptable. So, but right now in reality, I have about a 90% feeling rate. So that means roughly, I'm going to say 3 to 5 out of 100 reviews. So this is not referring to learning. This is referring to recalling. So 3 out of 5 times, something's going to get moved to the end. I have to try really hard, pick up all the things. And it is the thing that WaniKani is trying to compensate for. The one thing that mnemonics are great is it gets you to get to a different feeling, like to get to feeling, to get to intuition, right? So this, in my opinion, it represents less than 5% of the time eventually. It starts really high because of the lesson. But the question is, how quickly can I get to my lesson protocol to my review protocol? And how can I streamline it and whatnot to the point where I don't drop below 80%, but I'm really technically aiming for 90%. And that's where some people would say, oh, that sounds like the theory of comprehensible input. You're trying to keep whatever you're doing comprehensibly at a specific rate that produces an accuracy or a response time, an output time that is comprehensible within a certain amount. So in my opinion, in this way, because SRS, it's kind of hard without other context, but it's the closest way I can say, if I look at this character, how much aspect of the character is comprehensible to me? If 90% of the time I can somehow find mnemonics, process of elimination and stuff, looking at the character and get to the answer 90% of the time, in my opinion, that's the closest way I can say this character is comprehensible to me. And then obviously there are last ditch efforts. Context sentences would be one that is, in my opinion, outside of the core SRS system that WaniKani has. However, you can add them back. And Hanzahiro does that automatically. Hanzahiro allows you to toggle, and actually, since they use a synthetic voice, all of it is played out too. Like, it is, when you enter a read, or when you enter the read, then it'll read the entire sentence. And regardless if it's synthetic or not, the idea is you're using audio cues and a semblance approximation of whatever it sounds like in order to offer a second context. Because if you're looking at this already, I didn't describe or break up what it is that are prior outside resources, in which way they can be processed, or the mnemonics that that WaniKani provides. WaniKani does not provide sentence reading because they probably chose that by design, because it would probably myth a lot of people, say, oh, this sounds like terrible pitch accent, or this synthetic voice sounds awkward. You know, most of the criticisms pointed at Duolingo. And for me, it's an alternative audio memory device. So I think a lot of times people fear that if you hear something that is awkward, it is permanent, right? It can become a crutch in itself. And in my opinion, making things easy is our crutches if you view it negatively. But doing all of this is very effortful for me. So I really enjoy doing this stuff. And then when I go to read something, it's like without saying it, like trivialize it, it's easy mode when you start reading books. And it should be. When you read books, you listen to anime, you're listening to other people talk, there is so much more context to remember things. Now, you might be thinking, well, it's hard when you start. It's like, yes, because you aren't using those contexts yet. So here, this is, in my opinion, all the things I do to collect as much information and correlate them with the limited information I have. And then I bring in outside information. When I go to listen to anime and read books, I do the same thing. And then through practice, my voice broke, sorry. I do the same thing. And yes, there's a learning curve, but we're not measuring a learning curve, a well-practiced skill, to a different skill. You have to compare when you finish your learning curve, as in the process, the actual learning process. Then you compare its efficacies and refine, efficacy, efficiency, when you solidified a learning pattern. And the learning pattern is the thing that normalizes, or the normalizer to all the emotional, and in my opinion, frankly, myopic or limited, like you have a glass ceiling situation. So in anime, this participation of tier A, feeling, right? Tier A, feeling. Tier B, prior associations. You like the anime. You like you like stories about superheroes. You like coffee, so you listen to a podcast about coffee. You're already doing tier B. In SRS, if you don't like SRS, it's gonna underperform because you don't like not having a context. You're not bringing in context. So oftentimes they just go straight to tier C. So tier C, as you're going down, it takes more and more effort. So the idea is, are you familiar with doing all this? What is your system of process of elimination? Do you have an intent on a ritual or routine that you go through? To me, all of these are routines that you may have learned in school. You may have learned almost all of these routines while you're tackling difficult problems, right? When was the last time you brute force something and worked on the way you brute force something? There are systematic ways to bootstrap through your database in order to find something that you have very little detail about. Like, how do you know? Like, for example, if someone asks you, I'm guessing a random number between 1 to 100,000, how would you go about doing that? It might feel like it's random, but even there are still methods at that point to be more efficient than randomly guessing 1 through 100,000 until you get it right. Right? There are systematic ways. So, but when we're talking about language, it's not even to the point of trying to randomly guess a decrypted, randomized character, random string of 25 characters. It's not that. Right? You still have the human element, nature, natural language, historical figures, context, culture. So whenever I needed to differentiate between why is it that on first hand, someone is so much more effective when they listen to a podcast, immerse, and whatnot, is largely because when you're looking at SRS, you skip the first two immediately. SRS alleviates certain things, but they do not alleviate the idea of making things connected. So in the best way I can, I compensate for routine. So the way I'm breaking these things down creates a fixed routine that achieves a specific consistency that I have. And when that consistency falls, or like when the challenge enters, right? Like if there's something that challenges it and it reduces it, it isn't like you're going from 90% to 2% and your whole system falls apart. When you see the steady decline in your accuracy, you can find steady ways to optimize it. So this sounds really mechanical. It's because SRS is incredibly mechanical. However, I'm making it as similar, collaborating with things that I do. So in the evening, I pick up a book. I read a news article every once in a while. I watch anime. Those things, in my opinion, are very, very easy to do. Naturally, that's what makes them great, because people are looking for easy. But the question I often ask myself is, why is it easier? How is it easier than doing this? And I bring whatever that is to it. So now I watch anime, much like a lot of other people who intuit this. What is an SRS word that you have no trouble remembering, even though the SRS is the same? It's probably because there's a tier B process involved. You watch something, you discovered the word in the wild, and now it's burned into your mind. It's like, that's great. Now, what happens if you don't encounter that word and you still need to perform and encode that word from an SRS system so that you can pick it up later in anime and get reinforced, or in a podcast, you get reinforced? You create a habit that is very detailed and you consistently develop on it, so that when you go and do the other thing, you've done all this process involved in remembering that one thing. And it has to be a process, in my opinion, that can scale. So I'm doing all of this because it's scaling, and I'm hoping it continues to scale properly. If it doesn't scale properly, then the accuracy is going to go down as the volume goes up. So for now, it's pretty good. So I can take in, I don't know, 500, 600 reviews, go for 6 hours, and I don't naturally see a decline in my accuracy and retention. In fact, I think it's been quite some time, despite sitting there for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes on one last thing, the very last one. The very last one's going to be the hardest one, the loosest one. I still know the answer at some point, despite getting it wrong several times, going through process of elimination, double checking. All of that work is that the next time I do it, it's not going to happen. So then there is long-term retention, like super long disuse retention, right? We're called maintenance. And maintenance, we haven't tackled maintenance yet. The goal is I don't look too far. One of the downsides to this could be that maybe I'll never get to it and it'll be lost. It's like, that's fine, right? It might be something that's very arbitrary. Or the natural process would be I retain it long enough that it will be maintained when I no longer use SRS. So I don't plan anything that's far down the line, but it's probably going to end up being an anime situation, a podcast situation. The maintenance phase is not this. This is the encoding and the short term. And when I mean short term, I mean like a year. I think a lot of people talk about short term retention as tomorrow or the next week or the next month. However, SRS spans a year.
at least a year. So if I get them burned for a year, I'm starting to think about that now. So that's where the burn review comes in. And this is what I'll be working on this month. And I'll probably cover it on the day 200, how the burn review is done. But it's not like rocket science or anything like that. You probably already do a lot of this filtering. The idea is to break it down and be interested in it. So all of this got changed after the first 100 days. The first 100 days was a lot of this thought process. And then right at 100, I changed up everything that address the things. So I know that I said this was going to be fast, but 30 minutes is as fast as it goes. So that there's an example, Mark. I'm sure, and I'm not saying this is new or revolutionary. I actually think a lot of people do these things not so consistently enough that they form awareness or intent. Right? They do not form intent. Intention can help. It can produce motivation. It can give you clarity on ways to improve your weaknesses, or like look at what you can work on. I think, to me, when someone says, "Oh man, isn't this overcomplicating things?" My hot take on this is you complicate it enough until you're interested in it. No more, no less. Well, it's kind of a range. So you don't want to fall out of interest, right? So you become disinterested, and you want to maintain just enough that's not overwhelming. That also leads to disinterest. So you keep it here. So the moment you get on WaniKani and you're like, oh, okay, yep, I don't know this. I'll just take the L. Mistake. Okay, I'll just trust the SRS. It's like, that's great. That'll get you somewhere. Maybe in a faster. It might actually get there faster. Like you, right? The person, if I'm comparing myself, just blitz through it and let it do its thing. That person might get through it very, very quickly. But that person might not be as interested. And knowing myself, I'm very tenacious. I persevere. I'm an endurance. I like to consider myself an endurance person. So I could do something without any interest for years. I don't want to do that. The things I choose to do, I must elevate. So yes, overcomplicating things or complicating it enough is what's creating future skills. This is a skill that I started when I was 5 years old, and I got my first taste of how to form English sentences. That's all how I learned math, how I learned science. This is all since I could comprehend higher level thinking. So this process is not a language learning method. It's what I do over the course of tackling difficult problems. In fact, I actually go about this for most of my observations. Like, someone tells me, oh yeah, like creatine is the best supplement for timed workout output and muscular gain. And my first thought is, okay, so let me process this for a moment. Okay, so those words, these words, I actually do this in real time. So most of this stuff I do in real time. Like yesterday or 2 days ago, someone told me Duolingo is a watered down, is not good. It doesn't count as applying your knowledge because it's watered down and it's gamey, right? A good podcast would do even more. An anime will provide more richness in ideas. I do that breakdown immediately. Like, when it comes to practice and how you do it, You can have a combination of things. So in order to be analytical or being very pedantic, like I can choose to, okay, I agree. I don't want to invest my time in being pedantic about it. But if this person was being incredibly critical and they chose their words correctly, I can also do analytical ways to look at critically what someone is saying. And it does take extra effort and energy. However, it can get quick. It can be fast, but fast in a way that you're exchanging the speed for additional critical level of thinking. Now, I honestly think in this day and age, the easier things are, the more convenient they are, technically the less you learn and the less you retain, but it produces a whole heck of a lot of quick dopamine and consistent dopamine. And as long as the dopamine and the endorphins, your goal that you get continues to pay out or produce, then you're none the wiser for me. And for myself, I like to think that I can be interested in something. If there is something that is hard to remember, I can remember it if I want to. Not if the thing is interesting enough to me, then I'll remember it. And that's not a bad or a good thing. You can be very successful doing that. What is very important to note is, in this day and age, if you spend a lot of time on the internet, it's the other way around now. You're far more used to having something do the task for you. It has to be an ideal condition, or it has to be a sufficient condition for you to learn something. And I totally get that. In formal education, that is quite literally the opposite. You know these things because they're important. Someone else or something else has determined that these things are important for you. And then over time, you kind of choose whether you think it's important or not. For me, when I go to school, everything is important. Even if that literal detail or content is not important right now, I have the mindset of thinking maybe it'll be important later. So I'm greedy with my knowledge and I'm greedy with my memory. I always think that knowing this stuff could be useful later. It may be useful later. So the things I read on the internet, watching One Piece, watching My Hero Academia, regardless if I like one-shots or not, I want to retain enough information about them because they could be useful. It could be useful to talk to other people. So for communication styles, charisma and whatnot, how do you always have something to say, right? And link? You can fall back on foundations like talk about family, recreation, occupation, and interest, right? Those things are a foundation, but I wanted to do more. So to me, the way I think typically makes things more interesting to me. So if all of this doesn't matter to you in WaniKani, it doesn't have to matter to you, as long as you get your results. Because in my opinion, that's the more normalized behavior to do. I do this because it's super interesting. It keeps me motivated to develop skills that are relevant to not case by case. So whenever someone comes up to me and say, well, it depends. And I'm like, okay, I understand it generally depends, but isn't it interesting if you take up the challenge to think about how everything's connected? Because much like you can say everything is different, you can probably find similarities as well. And the nice thing about doing both is there's going to be times when you want to do something, but you can't. Or you think you can't because it depends. As in, you can't like rap music. That was actually a thing I'll give you a personal anecdote. You can't like rap music because the elements, when I was younger, the elements of rap music does not line with my interest. So rap music is disinteresting to me, and therefore I have nothing to learn from rap music. That's not the case anymore. So you can, whenever I'm specifically referring to things you choose to do. So when you have free time, a lot of people say, oh, I'm trying to cure my boredom, as in I'm trying to fill my boredom with something that interests me. And my response oftentimes is, what do I do next? As in, what should I pick up to become interested in? A lot of times. Now, by coincidence, I can have things that interest me. So those things will be inherently interesting to me, but I can become even more interested in the thing. As opposed to you are only reliant on what is interesting to you. So that means you can only learn by anime because you so choose to learn by anime. You only learn by comprehensible input, whatever that means, right? Nowadays, like, you can toss around theories, you can convince yourself, and it'll get you to your goal for sure. My question often asked is, can you do more? Like, are you in the set of saying, okay, right? The Satori graded readers are fantastic, by the way, to get an offset of retention. Now the question is, if I use Satori reader, would I do something like this again? Yes, I would. I would use Satori reader. I would evaluate how Satori reader initially, for like the first 30 days. I don't know if I can stream Satori reader. I have considered it. Lots of people have suggested this, but the reason why I choose the things I choose is because they're a lot safer to stream. Like, some people say, do you do immersion? It's like, of course I do. Whatever that means as well. But restreaming people's content and lots of copyright issues. But for Satori reader, if I were to do it, I would take a 30-day thing, try to analyze it. It might take longer for other people. If you're not well practiced in observing and evaluating, you can like kind of speed it up over time. But I would certainly not use it. I typically don't use things and say, oh yeah, okay, just help me out here. I'm too lazy to... Being lazy is not a bad thing. It's conserving energy when you don't have energy to spend. Like, I understand this could be an excuse, used as an excuse for chronic laziness, but it is true. When you are lazy, it also means you might not have energy or you're disinterested. So if you understand what creates that disinterest, your lack of energy, which sounds like motivation, right? These contribute to motivation, then you can choose to work towards it. So I'm not going to tell you, I want to clarify, I'm saying what it is, but it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to create the consequences. So you could be lazy and still be a hard worker, right? We have to remember that at points we are tired and not tired. So Satori reader, when I'm doing this, the hardest thing I'm doing is what I'm streaming. Like, by coincidence or by design, I am the highest energy I can possibly be. Like, right this moment, I am absolutely wired, right? But I drink water, just for the record. We don't use... This isn't a caffeine drinking stream. I'm most alert and highest energy when I'm on stream because I don't want to tell people, I don't want to give people the false impression. When stream is off, I do things that require less energy, less bootstrapping, less super wired attentive things. And what are those things? Reading a book, watching anime, listening to my favorite podcaster. Those are less energy, so I can still maintain being active, but I'm going down my energy thing. So like you might be asking, why do people get forced? Why do kids get forced to go to school first thing in the morning? Usually, and I'm saying usually, because you could be a really weird oddball that has a disjointed schedule with schooling. That's why enforcing sleep schedules can help entrain or increase the success rate. The idea is when you first get up, usually you're probably the highest in energy, despite the like grogginess at first, right? With assuming a proper sleep hygiene. Your most alertness tends to be in the beginning of the day. So for me, I get up, I go run, which wakes up my body, and I start streaming. And the things that I do for stream is that I'm at the highest of my energy. So I usually on stream show and tackle hard things. And when someone says, well, WaniKani isn't hard, Duolingo isn't hard, we're not talking about hard in the sense of what you think the content is. Like, if someone tells you Japanese is hard and then you just accept it and that's hard, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm working my hardest when I want to. So when I'm working on WaniKani, I'm actually working the hardest I can. Anything you do is as easy and as hard as you want it. And typically, if you want a fact, like a consistent, objective fact about what is hard and what is easy, hard is most of the things you're learning. Easy is relying on the things you already know. So if you're saying comprehensible input is the hardest thing you've ever done, that is absolutely 100% factually, objectively incorrect. Comprehensible input, the theory of it is to alleviate and rely predominantly on the things you already know. When it comes to scientific investigation, the hardest part is the thing you don't know or haven't tested. And you rely on as much information as you have on the easy stuff that allows you to understand the things you don't know. So if anyone asks me, like, they make this comment all the time, they're like, oh, hey, you're learning Japanese, that's one of the hardest language, kudos to you. Or you're learning Chinese, it's one of the hardest language. The hardest language to me are all the languages I choose not to learn. That is my TLDR of what all this represents. The hardest things are the things you haven't learned yet. That's how I think about it personally. And then the things I can choose to learn, they are not hard. They are as hard as I make them. And I know for some people it's like, well, don't you believe there are just things you can't learn? Like, well, yes. But do they happen often enough to be the norm? No. I don't predicate my fears and deterrence based on things that rarely occur versus things that consistently occur. So if you're going around saying, I can't learn a language because I tried once and failed, that's a rare occurrence. That's a sample size of 1. It's 0 out of 1. You tried once. Based on how you described it. You could say, oh, I tried once and I tried it 50 different ways. Then you're onto something. Possibly. But when you're voicing things and you're thinking, I can't do this, this is hard, this is easy, and your reference and sample size is 1 or rare in reality, then it's not true. It's not objectively true. So for example, I'm gonna get a lot of fire for this, but when someone has a ranking system, right, the US language system has an FSI system that people refer to at not like consistently all the time. They're saying English speakers have difficult time learning Japanese. Like, okay, how do they understand this? They use population statistics probably. In what percentage when people initiate do they reach a level of competency that they arbitrarily pick, right? And that's a way to attempt to measure hard. The facts don't change. Now, the interpretation, whether they are hard or not, is definitely to the people, to the system, and the person using it. So for myself, does their metric apply to me? They do. However, it's still not hard to me because I have additional metrics that are important to me, that are not considered in the metrics. I kind of looked at their metrics recently because someone brought it up again, and I asked them, do you know how they measure it? Because I don't know either. So since both of us didn't know, I am responsible for what I'm saying. So I looked into it. There are a couple metrics that I don't think it's easy to quantify. And one of the things to quantify is, what is the state of the learning process of a person before they engage in the learning of the language? Since it is attempting to be a random sample, you can make an argument that there might be cultural influences that make English speakers, predominant English speakers, not have the mindset or the learning predisposition for Japanese or Chinese. And one of them could be a lacking intent in learning process. In fact, I would say a vast majority of the English speaking countries, the ones that are predominant in English speaking countries, tend to have a different educational approach that consistently produce a specific type of learning process that may not necessarily be compatible with like the others. Now, is there a pattern to that? It's really hard to evaluate. But for myself, what makes me a little bit different, like this is coincidence, right? Correlation is not causation as well, but this is a coincidence here. I didn't grow up only learning or thinking in English, so how I approach learning English is this way. Do you approach English learning this way? Do you even remember how you approach English, your native language learning this way? Like, that's probably something that would be interesting. And I think if someone sits down and look at the way they go about it, it makes them less insecure about how they're learning, because it almost feels like you have control over it, right? You have control over it instead of saying, I'm going to trust this product, and the product is telling me how to learn. It's doing my learning for me. And that was the theme, by the way, Mark. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. That was the theme for the last 5 days of a separate thing came up each time regarding how someone is learning. And oftentimes it's more like, I like what I like, I do what I do, and I avoid the things I don't want to do. And that's fine. Adults are expected by now, I'm going to put it in quotes. Typically, you expect someone who is 30 plus, or someone who has gone through the educational system, whichever country you're from, or educational system, you expect at a specific age, you have learned enough about your learning process that you can find those things. You can find the tool that works for you. You can measure the tool's output that's only interesting to you, and you make it work. Like you, Mark, when you say you've started doing Satori graded readers to additionally offset your retention. That's fantastic, because you're exercising your abilities and your experience to increase the steps. And I would say, no, WaniKani will not make me fluent in the areas that it literally does not do. I have to literally go and find and do them. So it's different from someone who tells me you're not going to be fluent in WaniKani because there's a tool that does everything. I disagree. That tool probably does not do everything. It's so untrue. It's so ridiculous. It's kind of like saying all right, I have a native Japanese friend. I can become fluent with a native Japanese friend to the satisfactory of the universe or the rest of the world. That is absolutely not true. Like, if that were true, your parents are your only source of information necessary to be universally appropriate for everything. That's not how knowledge works, especially for humans. Especially you're talking to another human being. So all of this stuff that I'm talking about, retention, mnemonics, outside order, order of thinking, all of that is affecting your source of universal knowledge. So when you come and say, yeah, you should only listen to native speakers for your source of everything that deals with this language because that's all that matters. It's like all the things that matter to you are sufficiently produced by these collective of people. And that's great. Now we have to contend with the idea that if I had your friends, right, and had your life, is all of that sufficient to fulfill my arbitrary qualities of being universally fulfilled? No. Usually that involves the learning process. So when someone says, this is the best way, are you guys friends yet? Do you know about each other? Now, why is it that it still works when someone suggests something different than the current thing that someone is doing? Is because, in my opinion, there are some human conditions that they're human conditions. So they're essential, they're ever true about humans. When you offer advice, and if you default to being a contrarian, it inherently triggers the other person's intuition, intellectual curiosity, and also emotional, if they disagree, emotional righteous indignation. So it actually elicits the many different human conditions that actually propel that person to be successful. So in my opinion, yes, it does work. Constantly suggesting different things to another person just because you disagree, which is how the internet operates, is a very healthy human condition process. So when someone comes up to me and say, yo, Anki is better, that helped me. Just the idea of explaining or having someone not even explaining, most people don't explain to me how Anki is better, but just mentioning that Anki exists, and then a lot of people saying, yeah, Anki is better, like, but I keep asking them how, like, explain to me. But if they don't explain it to me, but if enough people suggest that, I myself have the power to be curious about it, and understanding how Anki works even without using it can help in developing more of your thinking process. So is it because, now this is the hard part that I don't understand because I did not dedicate my entire life to language learning. Now, why is it that there are so many methods in language learning compartmentalized for those who compartmentalize? Why does it seem like there are like 800, 200, or 300 thousands of methods that are successful with like some tweaks and stuff that claim to be successful in language learning? I actually think it is how those methods eventually get introduced to someone's language learning journey. The idea is most things in the human condition are successful if the person is looking for something that works. So what I mean by that is when they start to look for other things that improve and work, they have actively engaged in the opportunity to intellectually be invested in their learning process. So whenever someone argues about something, debate, discussion, disagreements and agreements, they lead to one human condition. intellectual curiosity and exploration. So yes, if you start with Anki, you can still do better. If you start with Duolingo, you can still do better. What you don't do better, in my opinion, or you stagnate, probably the word is stagnate, as in you feel grindy and bored, is the moment you decide to never change what you're doing, to always stick to what you believe is the best. That is triggering one human condition, and that is, if you stagnate, you stagnate. So if you're investigating in an intellectual property, if you're trying to learn and get better at things, and you yourself is doing something, you're hoping the thing you do lasts long enough before your enthusiasm and your motivation stagnates to the point where you prefer to just settle. And that's fair. Like, some people, like the person I met yesterday, forwardly told me that, oh, you know, my Spanish is pretty much in maintenance. And I'm like, oh, that's fair enough. So they aren't interested necessarily to juggle or ladder. I am. Learning WaniKani, like learning Japanese and Chinese, have revealed that I can be so much more interested in English as well. So today, when I'm explaining these things, I'm practicing the level of English that I'm used to. I'm learning how to describe the learning process, my language learning process, using my native language. Now, some people might say, well, you're basically using the same English words and you already know English grammar. Like, how could you be improving your English right now? Communication. How do you communicate a complex thought process in Japanese? I can't do that yet. But when I was learning Japanese, I can most definitely still be doing things in English that pushes the boundaries of my understanding of how to explain things in English. So I start writing more. I haven't written in English, like literally doing this stuff. I haven't done this in 7 years since I left my graduate studies. I have not used English in the manner that I use now, because every waking day there are ways to improve. So when someone says, yeah, they're okay with maintaining their Spanish now they move on to the next language, that's fair enough. And you hope that whatever the energy you save, right, the energy you save to switch something to maintenance mode, that is reinvested in the future. So for someone that says that, I hope that the next sentence that they say is, that's because maintenance is sufficient, and then now with all that extra energy, I can pour it into something else. And that, to me, is what I like to believe my stream is about. I come on stream knowing I have a bunch of happy dollars, and I am going to use it as much as I can. And then what I do most of the time that I've described before is, as my energy level gets lower, I find a task I can still do using the energy. And then I go to bed exhausted with a positive feeling each day that I was productive, right? And that is optimizing habits, in my opinion. And this, I love talking about this stuff. Sorry, it's like been an hour now, Mark. But I love talking about this stuff. If someone asks me a question about this, we can get ham. It's not about being right or wrong. It's showing that paint drying can be interesting. Watching someone spoil the game for you can be interesting, in my opinion. Playing the game can be interesting. It's not whether playing the game yourself is better than watching someone else play a game. The idea is, okay, you don't want to play this game, but you are interested in this game, right? So you can watch the game. And when you're watching the game, it's a different experience than playing the game. It's different, not better or worse. Some things are fundamentally different. When you're asking yourself, can I do this instead of this? Why is this relevant to language learning? That is the question most people get tossed in front of me all the time. Like, oh, if you're gonna spend your time on Duolingo, you might as well spend it on watching anime and podcasts instead, because they do the same thing somehow. And then they would say that, oh, because Duolingo is gamification and podcast is not. That's not doing the same thing. That's doing two different things, and you told me which one you like better. Like, I would take the objective if they actually stated something that was comparable between the two. But instead, they basically explained to me, which is very informative, by the way. It's very important to know that I appreciate how people are candid. When they are candid about their comparisons and observations, it allows me to gather a lot of information. So when someone straight up says, oh, I think Duolingo is a waste of time because it's gamified, you should read a textbook because it's not gamified. That is telling me that those two things are different and not comparable. So you want to focus on something that is comparable, to be objective. Like, objectively, it's true. Duolingo is gamified, textbooks are not. That is objective. That is not an interpretation or an application of the difference between them. Like leading to something that is a measurable output. Someone could say, oh, the textbook teaches grammar, and Duolingo teaches grammar to a lesser extent, quote unquote, watered down, and therefore you are likely more to get high detail of grammar. I agree with you. Is it better or worse? How do you interpret that? It's like, well, I like the effort that I need to do or put in to learn the high level of grammar. And I don't like not putting in effort because the grammar is watered down in Duolingo. I follow you now. That makes sense. And I will tell you, when I want to invest in a high level of grammar, I will go to the textbook. Thank you for your advice. And I do refer to a grammar source, but I don't typically do textbooks. I have another comparison. I used to go on Tofugu's site, which is under maintenance now. Like, it's not really kept up to date, but I used to go to Tofugu's site because it requires less effort and less digestible grammar than a textbook, because I desire that level of effort. I know that I'm not getting all of the grammar that a textbook may cover, but I'm getting the stuff that I like the way these people present. So I'm getting to know how Tofugu writes their stuff, while at the same time getting less grammar. But I know that I'm getting less grammar. However, I'm also expending less effort because I don't have enough energy to go to a textbook. That is being aware of what the facts are and then making them relevant to each other. It's so different when someone says, hey, you should use Anki. Anki is a better version of WaniKani. Is it? Explain. And someone would say something like, well, it covers more kanji. That's true. It does cover more kanji. How does that, like, if I know less than the kanji that is WaniKani and I know less than what's in Anki, how does having more kanji affect someone who's still learning kanji? So that's the usual argument for WaniKani. They would say something, oh, if you like WaniKani, have you tried Anki? And my first question is, mate, can you explain to me why you would suggest this? Like, is there something that allows me to be like, am I learning, what else can I learn from Anki? And they're like, well, you can learn more kanji. It's like, okay, well, I'll get to it when those two, WaniKani and Anki would overlap until they don't. So until I get to that point, I don't think that would be a interpretive, rational reason to start Anki. So then they could go into the nuance. Like maybe they can explain, oh, I interacted with WaniKani. This is the process that WaniKani does or gets me to do. I used Anki. This is the process. I've compared them, and yeah, I think Anki's better. Most of the time, in my opinion, they're feeling out which is better, and that is sufficient. You can tell me by saying, right, you should try Anki. I like Anki better than WaniKani. It kind of just ends there. And then what I would do is, well, thank you for the share. I have heard that a lot of people like Anki. May I ask you, have you tried WaniKani? And if it's a yes, I would ask them, how does it feel? Like, what are the things that make the feeling for WaniKani different from Anki? Now, in my opinion, that's what I do. And when people don't stay around to talk about those things, then we're incompatible. So my friends, my best friends are the people who stayed that like talking about that stuff. So there you have it. I wanted to add a personal anecdote to this because I think taking the opportunity to talk about something analytical and then relating the analytical motivations to something anecdotal can be a powerful memory tool. So how do I remember all of this? Improvisational is because a part of me has sentimental association with this. So when you're going around and saying, I remember Japanese much better when I'm learning Japanese from a native speaker who also happens to be my friend, that's what I'm talking about. So there you have it. At least I try to go full circle. So there. And why am I recording myself doing this when no one, like, thank you, by the way. I really appreciate, Mark, when you stop on by or other people stop on by every once in a while in a month, in months and years, because I love catching up with them. This is why I stream it. It also helps retention. I focus on the things I say in English. I also focus on the things that I know in Japanese, and I like to explain things because I'm using it. Someone suggested that I do not use what I learned on Duolingo because maybe they only believe that you're only using Japanese when you're literally using Japanese. Well, when you explain Japanese words to other people and you explain the way you learn things, yes, that is not literally using the Japanese. But to me, if I wasn't doing the Japanese in the first place, I would not be so interested in all of this in the first place. So I put my heart, or I try to put my heart and my lifestyle into the things I need to learn. That, in my opinion, if you wanted a TLDR when it comes to learning, leverage as much of what you already do to be involved in the thing you're learning, because it's easy mode but hard, not easy because it's easy. When it's easy because it's easy and you keep it easy, then you're not working. Like, you're not putting any effort into it. Love takes effort. I don't know if this connects with a lot of people nowadays, especially on the internet. To be nice to a person you dislike takes effort. To learn why something doesn't work and you're trying to make it better takes effort. The question is, are you willing to sacrifice that time, I guess, to develop something? Or you prefer the whatever you're looking for, the goal that you want? Becoming fluent in Japanese is all of this to me. When I 4 years down the line, when someone says, "Oh, 日本語は上手です," right? Like, 日本語を上手です, right? I'm like, "Oh, hey, that's cool. May I may I share some stories with you about how I went about getting to this position? And they might be like completely sarcastic. It's irrelevant, right? I prefer to think that the other person that's saying this is genuine about their comments. I just wanted to do the Jozu meme here. They would be, I would be able to share all of this. Like, how did I get there? Because I'm interested in, I love my journey there. So then the other person's like, oh, may I ask you how you understand my English? Like, I want to know, right? And I want to be surrounded by people who do that naturally. So hats off to anyone who's interested in the process. It sounds chaotic, it's long, but a lot of this is incredibly important to me. And I hope other people find that the things they do are incredibly important to them too, especially the things they choose to do. I don't work anymore as a job, right? Like, I don't obligate myself to work anymore, but I don't do any less for a job. I actually do more for a job. Sometimes I sacrifice my own personal health for a job, and that's what led me to burnouts and stuff. The job pushes me even further than this. So I would say humbly, I'm going to say this as respectfully as I can. This is the bare minimum I would do when someone tells me to do something or asks me to help them. I don't care if it's a stranger or my best friends. This is the bare minimum of effort I would place into understanding someone's problem. Now, it might not be for everyone. Ask yourself, how do you go about interacting with someone? How do you show them that you care? Now, if this sounds like it's overcomplicated, I do this every single day. When Mark asks this question or asks me to describe something, I will do this bare minimum. And I'm going to say that this is my segue. I'm going to end this like digression or rant right now because it's premature. I could go on for another 3 or 4 hours, but we have lessons to do, so. And I'm not entirely sure Mark is here anymore, but I really appreciate it. If you're gonna watch this later and hear the rest of the comment, it'll be in the video. Like the most of this stuff I take great pride to some extent in sharing. So oh yeah, no worries, Mark. I just wanted to make sure, like, if you're gonna watch this later, I wanted to tell you that I like to put in at least the bare minimum. This is the bare minimum. You're catching about 80%. That's fair enough. That's fair enough, Mark. So there you have it. I'm gonna go over all of this at day 200. All of this that's different from day 100. So it would be interesting to hear what you end up doing when you're like hit a glass. Like, you know how WaniKani eventually just stops, right? So the question is, what are you going to do beyond that? And you can still use WaniKani to an extent. So that's where I am now, right? I asked myself, well, burn, it shouldn't, to me, I don't want it ended at burn. Like, sure, you go past it. Like, this is a goalpost for some people, right? You get to the goalpost, and I'm like, nah, like, my life isn't just randomly going to end, or, sorry, knock on wood. My life isn't just randomly going to end when I burn everything. So why keep the eye on burn? Let's move the goalpost. And that's what I'm doing. So when someone, you know how people celebrate, and I love that they celebrate. They should celebrate if it motivates them some more. When you go on like WaniKani's forum, like, yeah, I reached level 60 celebration and whatnot. I love that other people celebrate. I typically don't celebrate anything until someone like wants me to celebrate. So whenever I think of level 60, right? When you get to like level 60, this is before burning everything. Level 60. By the time I trust myself, by the time I'm approaching level 60, I've already planned something well down the line. So like I'm just gonna skip over, like 60 is gonna happen and I'm already off to the next thing. That's kind of how I think most of the time. So things don't end. They are the beginning of new things. In fact, a lot of times I stagger. So if I'm already getting close to 60, I'm starting something new with it. All the stuff that I've learned is going to be staggered. So, you know, Japanese, Chinese, Spanish. And it doesn't have to line up in Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, and then I'm going to go on to the next language. Then it's Japanese video games, Chinese video games, Spanish video games. What else? I'm gonna start writing reviews again. I love writing things, but I haven't wrote a review in a while, like a comment review or an editorial or a blog. I'm gonna write them. English, Japanese, Chinese, Spanish. So when someone says, "Oh yeah, I don't have a motivation to maintain the language that I have," right? What are you doing right now? Have you wrote a recipe before? Do you like cooking? If you wrote a recipe, write it in Spanish or write it in Japanese. Like, write it next to your English. There are so many things in your life. The lovely thing about having a life skill, right? A life skill, especially language learning, is there's no shortage of ways for you to retain things. The question is, have you thought about it and intent? Do you have intent to do it? For me, I don't, my question often, I'm not sure if other people ask this often times. I ask myself, am I working hard enough? I don't ask myself, is it easy enough? Rarely do I ever ask, is it easy enough? I'm asking myself, am I working hard enough? Are things becoming too easy? Because in my opinion, and this is going to be a weirder flex than anything, I'm not sure if people consider this a criticism or a flaw, but when I say you have to work sufficiently hard versus too hard, or in another way to think about it, the reverse way, the internet, far more common internet way, is it easy enough, right? Or it's usually too hard over here. So it would be like too hard, easy enough, or too easy and sufficiently hard. Or it's kind of like that. What I worry about is I need to work hard enough to be interested. But there are things that could be too easy that I just don't do anything. So it's kind of like the reverse. I guess it would be this way instead. It'd be too easy, sufficiently hard. These are the bottom line for most people. And for me, I actually operate here. So the too hard for me is very different for other people's too hard. Too hard to me is I'm going to quit. And then you're saying, well, that's exactly what people say when they're too hard. No, their too hard is not going to start. This is more of the pattern that I see when people say this is best, this is the easiest, this is the most optimized, this is better than that, you're going to fail, you're going to be successful. This is the perspective. This is my perspective. Is it too easy? Then I will likely have diminished return. What is that diminished return? It's disinteresting. What is too easy for me? Playing an identical video game with a slight iteration. Now we're talking about learning capacity here. I have guilty pleasures. I call these things that are too easy are called guilty pleasures. What is too easy for me, but I'm not looking to enrich my learning capacity? Eating ice cream. Eating my favorite sandwich that I've eaten like 1,000 times over. Easy dopamine, right? Watching an anime sequel to another anime, but they did the exact same thing, but somehow I really like it. It's so easy to understand, right? I'm not learning much, but I'm getting I'm getting diminished return in learning, but I'm getting maximized dopamine. In my opinion, the internet produced this the most, and it leads to this desire. It leads to this type of thinking. When the internet provides everything at a convenience, it's so easy that you no longer do any learning capacity or critical thinking or problem solving. Learning capacity is affected by critical thinking and problem solving. So you don't do any of that anymore. It's too easy. When things are too easy, it becomes the normal. And this too easy ends up here. Ends up affecting this. It affects your bottom line. So whenever it is not easy enough, it's too hard. So you're not going to start it. And it's not a bad or good thing. When the internet can continue to provide things easy enough for you, you can get the job done. You can get so many things done. Now, when you're upset with yourself and you're talking to another person who may differ from you, which is me, and I'm going to tell you I'm probably below average, as in below average in the sense that I think I am part of a minority of people. Nowadays, the internet embraces and normalizes and also farms, milk money off of people doing this. It's not necessarily intentional in the sense that they knew this and they're abusing and neglecting. Rare cases, but I think the vast majority of people optimized for human condition. Human condition is the most consistent way of producing results. One of the greatest human conditions is easy, easy, easy. In the short term is effectively awesome, awesome, awesome. Now, when problems come up, that's abnormal now, right? For humans, when a problem comes up, it's rarer than not having problems. So the paradigm has shifted, in my opinion. It's not shift dramatically. Like when you're born, like in my era, before the internet, you don't think of life as, oh, I'm going to have more problems at life than not having problems. No, consistency is the norm. But problems occurred more often with less solutions and less readily available conveniences before. So the opportunity for problem solving and critical thinking was far more available. When things come easy, they no longer are easy. They are normal. So if you're saying that it is hard for WaniKani to teach you and retain language or Duolingo doesn't teach you anything and you don't retain anything, I can't empathize with that at all. Because if I see myself having retention problems with Duolingo, I use Duolingo for what it can offer, and then I work on retention. I understand the things that I don't have from Duolingo, and I go find it. So when you are using Duolingo for exposure or practice, you find a learning source. If retention is your problem, Duolingo is your exposure, so go find a retention. Right? If you think you're not learning anything, go find a learning source, but then you will probably find out that Duolingo is great for repetition. Or like a dopamine hit to remind you what you learned, right? So despite people not being able to analytically understand their cause and consequences, what they can, if they told me these things or tried to explain these things to me by feeling alone, you can kind of argue in the same way to encourage them to do something that addresses their problem. So when someone says Duolingo doesn't teach anything, then you're going to have to find something that teaches you something. Explain to yourself why Duolingo doesn't teach you anything. I could argue with you that to me, it teaches a lot of things, but that's because the two of us are extracting things differently. So when you find out that something doesn't teach you anything, it should tell you what you should not be looking for. Or you could use critical thinking and problem solving skills to make that thing teach you something, or you use this to find something new. The downside is this is not the same as not using critical thinking and finding something new. What does that look like? More than 50% of people who try to learn something on the internet, they go and find someone else to tell them what their problem is and the solution for it. They did not use critical thinking and problem solving skills to figure out what they're going to look for next. They didn't even reflect on it. They go to a top 10 list, they go down the top 10 list and have other people explain to them why it works. And without second hesitation, they do not process what is relevant to them, because it's easier to do that. You don't have to waste time reflecting on why something failed if you only focus on the things that work, or other people telling you that it works. So that, to me, is the current state of language learning. This is the current state of language learning online. When you're getting advice from people, they are expected. Now, I'm not saying the people who are selling you theories and methods are intentionally neglecting you or misleading you. They are doing their best to support what they believe works by also being aware what sells. If all the internet audience, most of the internet audience, like over 50% of the internet audience, want to be explained explicitly why things work and how they work, then it feeds back to this, right? You're competing with other products. So when someone tells me that Duolingo doesn't explain anything, my first thought is, are you expecting it to explain everything? If it does, why did you pick Duolingo? Right? Like, if you use Duolingo is free, so you can test it out. WaniKani has a 1 month period. When you tell yourself, I'm looking for something that explains everything to me, and then you use the product and you're like, this product is garbage, it doesn't explain anything to me. And then you tell yourself one of the biggest flaws of this product is it doesn't explain anything. Meanwhile, the design intentionally does not explain anything. So is that a criticism or is that cognitive dissonance? A lot of times, advice, how people choose solutions, are not in concordance to understanding what they require. I like to think that school, again, formal education, tackling things like your job, right? Tackling things in your job often triggers critical thinking, problem solving in order to learn things without quitting. I think if I had a bottom line, if I wanted to generalize the end result, I don't say these things or reveal these things or talk about processes because I want to quit. I reveal and talk about things unnecessarily because it makes me want to keep going. It makes me want to keep improving. So when someone says, I'm not going to start that because it sucks, my question is, why don't you take up the challenge and find out if it does suck actuality? Like, well, no, it's not worth my time. It's like, that's fair. But are you going to start something in the meantime? No, you're going to spend the next 30 days trying to figure out something else, right? So the question is, if you spent those 30 days trying to start somewhere where other people have started and then learn from it, where would you be now? I'm not saying it would be better or worse. Like it's guaranteed to be better or worse. The idea is you have more than one choice. You have a lot of choices to go about this. And in my opinion, when you feel like you have a lot of choice in learning, it gives you a bit of inherent confidence. It makes you stop thinking in an all or none state or a you must do this in order to succeed state. You think about what I usually think about, which is to be sufficient. Is it sufficiently hard? Like, can you learn something from this? My odds are saying 99.9% chance I'm going to learn something from Duolingo, despite what tons of people keep saying. You get negative learning somehow. You get negative learning, you develop bad habits, so you're going to have to unlearn those bad habits. You're not going to learn anything about grammar, which apparently I still haven't because someone told me that I didn't learn anything. And you're never going to use any of the Japanese that you've learned in Duolingo because all of it is not real Japanese, right? So not only did Duolingo do all those things in some capacity, it led me to WaniKani. WaniKani led me to podcast. Podcast led me to vlogging. In fact, all of them were already part of my lifestyle. But now, because I use Duolingo, WaniKani, my podcasts, my anime, my video games now have those as part of their routine. So some days I sit there and say, huh, that's a weird sounding word. Huh, how would I go about this? You know, I kind of remember this being in Duolingo Japanese somewhere. It's kind of like it was like section 3, unit 14, I think. And I look at section 3, unit 14. Oh, okay, so that's what made me think about it. Well, you know what? I could have went about this by looking at the own and the radicals. I think this was like on level 10 of WaniKani, I believe. So let's go back to WaniKani level 10. Oh, okay, there's that character I was thinking of. Like, well, you know what? This kind of actually reminds me of the Chinese character. What was that? Like level 28? It was one of the components. Let's go look at Hanzahiro. That's how I go about it. That's how I build memory. So, to all due respect to those people who try really hard to say you only like think in certain ways and you try to not relate certain things, that's fair. Especially language. Somehow, like Chinese is sufficiently different from Japanese, in which, in your use case, that somehow you're only going to use Chinese in certain situations and Japanese in certain situations. I get it. Very pragmatic. My memory goes in a whole different loopy way. So yes, when someone says, "Oh, you mixed up Chinese and Japanese." That's why I don't learn Japanese and Chinese together. Like, okay. And then, they only want to see the parts that I confuse. So if you only want to witness and confirm your suspicions that yes, learning Chinese and Japanese can cross your wires, are you able to see all the times it doesn't cross wires, or how the cross wires affect other areas of learning? You can choose not to, but I will sure as heck try to demonstrate that. I will try to explain how Duolingo made me treat WaniKani differently. I've talked with other people who went from WaniKani and then adding Duolingo, and how they like view it differently, and that's pretty cool. I think that's neat. So even then, when someone goes think that they know Spanish well enough, and now they're just moving to Chinese, and they're still translating to English as opposed to translating to Spanish, maybe they will. I don't know. That's what I'm doing. Like, I actually spend more time thinking Chinese when I'm learning Japanese than English. I explain things in English that are not relevant, like not directly relevant to understanding what the Japanese word means. Most of the time, when I'm thinking like, I don't know, let's use ichi, right? Ichi, that's ichi, or I, right? I see I and ichi, then I see one. So that's one. That's ichi and I. So you can decide like, oh, that's only ichi. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Perfectly all right. It's ends to a means to an end, right? Anyways, this is I'm starting to like bridge into controversial territory. So this is as far as I'll go for this type of thing. It will probably be later in WaniKani as well. In the review, this would be where I would add like the FAQ section or something anecdotal. I think this mindset, they both exist. One is far more popular than another mindset, and it's a consequence, in my opinion, or it correlates. I'm not gonna say cause. Like, I take back consequence. It's a possibly a side effect, an indirect or a correlative thing that is happening with how people learn. I do earnestly believe that the fundamentals of learning are no longer the same. So and it's due to social conditions like normalization. That this is not where my theory came from. It wasn't from language learning originally. It was from financial education, decision making, and communication. All three of these had a paradigm shift as well. Getting financial education is like so different now. It's someone telling you what's going to happen when you invest, not invest to be alert and practice in understanding what comes of your investment. So there's no like upkeep. A lot of times there's no process or building or self-checking or oversight. It's often you get a result is presented to you as a way to guarantee its result if you invest. So when you pick up WaniKani, you're going to look at someone like myself. Actually, I highly doubt someone like when they type in WaniKani, oh, how good is WaniKani? And my video is going to show up because I have none of those indications. There's a very minimal of saying, here's a 10-minute brief summary of how to use WaniKani in a very simple, digestible way in which the result already happened. And then I'm assuming everything about anyone who has who's going to watch the video, and I'm selling it. So for me, if you're going to ask a question, obviously I invite you to stop on by, and maybe I can show you that I care enough to give you an answer that you might not like to hear, or it might just be too boring for you. And that's fair enough. Like, we all have our priorities. One of the biggest things are for all the people who stay or occasionally stop by, I love to hear their like 3-hour or 4-hour spiel about their like favorite movie or their favorite practices, because in my opinion, that's where improvements in memory are priceless. I'm gonna end this with a very positive note about other content creators, because I feel like I might be throwing some shade into the internet space. I don't think that's the case. I'm gonna highlight a person that I've heard an anecdote from. When it comes to getting advice from people or getting insight from people, you often want to ask them to summarize their experiences and the nuances of their experiences, not necessarily primarily focus on the content of their expertise, because nowadays the internet has plenty of that. It arguably has all of it. What it doesn't have is the experience of the expert. So to echo one person's anecdote, one person who is now an acclaimed award-winning public speaker, he had the opportunity to meet with some of his aspiring people, like some of his inspirations. And he talked about how, can I get an hour of your time? And what he did was he was interested in the wisdom that person had, as opposed to the information that he can get anywhere else. And that was transformative. So, yes, when someone tells me Anki will teach me 4,000 kanji in like 20 minutes, I'm like, yes, you can probably learn 4,000 kanji or see 4,000 kanji in many different ways. It is not it's not a revelation, nor is it informative on how it will affect me, right? I know that in the internet days, people like to throw numbers around. It's kind of like, for lack of a better word, when a student enters college and they believe that data, like having facts, is sufficient to develop wisdom and interpretation. They would say things like, oh, there are 100 goldfish in New Hampshire, and New Hampshire happens to be the happiest state in the United States. Therefore, goldfish can lead to happiness. That is kind of how I feel a lot of times when someone is trying to sell me advice or convince me on advice in language learning. Now, it is their prerogative. I'm not going to say you're wrong, or you should reconsider, or gaslight you and convince you that that's a logical fallacy or what have you. I just hope that your decisions that you make would like to welcome my perspective as a consideration, and then you continue to make decisions that make you successful at your goals. So if thinking that something teaches more kanji somehow makes it a better product, and it led you to a product that helps you learn more kanji, then honestly, it's not my place to interfere or tell you that I know better or I know worse or I had a different experience. However, if you're asking me a question, I'll probably do as much as I can to offer my wisdom, as opposed to telling you, well, you know, you could learn 400 kanji here and then learn 400 more kanji that's different from the 400 kanji here. Then you can learn like 1,000 that aren't in those two. So what does that sound like? JLPT 1, JLPT 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 resource. So you can combine all 5 of these resources to get the 4,000 kanji. I'm making up numbers, by the way, because I don't concern myself with that type of approach. But then you would get the same kanji from this one source that teach all the kanji. So what have you learned? You predicated your decision on a metric that does not explain the first thing, in my opinion, or I like to think one of the earliest things that eventually dawns on budding scientists or budding mathematicians or statisticians or engineer, and that's the importance of methodology. The understanding of methodology explains the value of the metrics. And I don't expect that in a world where most people, in my opinion, don't have to do that anymore. They are told that those metrics do that. It's easier and more convenient to say, I read this number, tell me what the number tells me. Right? So when someone tells you you have walked more steps, that a tracker tells you have walked more steps than yesterday, you want to be told, what does that mean? What does that translate into consequences? So then all you have to do is focus on not having to critically think or problem solve about what those steps actually mean. Because you could say, I've walked 3,000 steps yesterday. I've walked 3,001 steps tomorrow. Now, I have used this advice before. I really have. But that is 1 foot through the door situation. So when someone is incapable of walking 3,000 steps, you start with 1 step, then 2 steps, 3 steps. That is the beginning of that person's journey into understanding how they can develop the understanding of the value of taking 1 step, taking 2 steps, taking 3 steps. Language, 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, 1 grammar concept, 2 grammar concept, 1 story, 2 stories, 1 anime, 2 anime, 1 self-written book, 2 self-written books. That is the beginning of the journey. So it's very useful when you begin things. So I hope that decision leads to far more complex versions of problem solving, critical thinking. And every once in a while, those people who develop all those successes decide, I think I'm sufficient in academic exploration, and now I want to produce a product that may instruct and try to summarize all my wisdom into a product. Then you have those people. Now, does that allow the people who are buying that product to develop that sense of that skill that led to this person's success? No, because objectively they're trying to not do that. They're trying to expedite that. So when you consume someone's product that is made for mass consumption, problem solving, critical thinking skills would tell you that it's probably incredibly streamlined, and there's a lot of methodology and loss in translation and experience that is not captured in that product. Now the question is, can you turn that into experiences? So If I see someone tell me this is the best product ever, I'm going to try to improve it. If I use a product, I'm going to try and improve it. If it's the suckiest product and someone says you have to try this, I'm going to try to do something else with it while I'm using it, right? I don't think you need to settle for the tool. The tool rarely ever defines a human being, at least in my opinion. Yet, I think the impression that I get is people speak as though it does. So, oh, you use Duolingo. You're only going to be Duolingo fluent. It's like, no, I'm not. Like, what makes you think that? Oh, it's probably, if I had to be really aggressive about this, you probably think that whatever you see on stream is the only thing I do. Because that's the same thing as looking at a Duolingo user and saying that they only use Duolingo. However, I don't blame them to thinking that way, because they probably, maybe over 50% of the time, are correct, because they themselves also do the same thing. It's like, I'm an Anki user, so I'm only going to mention Anki and the consideration and comparisons only in the frame of Anki. That's not a bad or a good thing. You can still get to your goals, learning 4,000 kanji with Anki, right? As long as it's appropriate. The question is, can I talk to this person? Can I interact with this person and say something different? Usually I try. And mixed results. My current preliminary impressions that you don't touch Anki when you're talking about Japanese. You can definitely touch Anki when you're talking about Chinese and Spanish. So it might be it's a much more complex question in terms of the normalized behavior when double standards come into play with language. But yeah, there you have it. One of my favorite topics. Sorry. Hang on, let me ban this Twitch bot. My daily Twitch bot, reminding me my Twitch feed is still working. Alright. Nice. Thank you again, Mark. And I hope all your studies and stuff are doing well. I totally stole the mic, but hopefully your Japanese studies and whatnot are doing well, and you're staying interested and motivated and finding different ways to interact with your target language. All right. Now it's time to start our review. Did I need to go over? No, I think we were fine, right? Yesterday we were fine. Usually mistakeless. Okay, let's get into this. Whoops, I need to get rid of this. If I forgot, that's perfectly alright. One day is not gonna break the bank. Okay. Okay. Oh, and today is our off day. So we're waiting for like the second peak day. So all of these should be in old group. This should be an old group, right? So that's my mindset right now. Old group. Kaimono. Kaimono. Okay. Oh god. That feeling? Okay, uriage. What is uriage? We're gonna skip this. The meaning for now. Kaeru. Kaeru. Ooh. Yes. No. Yes. I'm just gonna go for it. I feel like this is good. 仕返し. Uh, 仕返し. We're gonna skip this for now. Okay. Oh no, 决定. 决定是什么? 决定是 determine, right? 决定是determine, supposed to determine, but what is 决? I can't think. Jazz is too strong. Too strong. D. D. Nope. Oh, maybe like
屋上
Okujo. Okay.
売り手
Urite. Or merchant.
ちょうどいい
Chodoi. That's right. Sure. I got this B, not B. Because of B for compare in Chinese. That was a gut feeling. There's another one. Gut feeling. Kuraberu?
比べる
Yeah, kuraberu. Okay. What am I looking at? It's not silver, right? It's not silver. So it's root. Oh, this is our newest one. This got added. Right? Yesterday. What the heck? Oh.
対決
Aiketsu. It has a different recording as well, which is interesting. It's slightly different. You can hear the different recording or voice recording. There are a few in the old ones too where the recording environment changed noticeably. What was this, like Showdown? Okay.
気持ち
Mochi. Uh-oh. Chinese. 保持 する what was 保持 Oh. Yoji suru? Hoji suru? Hoji? No. Alright, we're passing. I'll come back to it. Ooh, that's not great. I think we're already over 10 skipped. Yeah, a little bit of a long day today. Okay. Is this the one? This is special. It's probably special because it doesn't. This is not a. It's an onyomi. Whoops. Try. My gut feeling was like something like this. Okay, just kidding. All right, well, pass on this too. Oh no, these are the greatest hits. Nope, gut feeling didn't work. Somehow I still want to type this. I do. But I don't think it's the same meaning. Huh. I doubt it. Yeah. What is this? They're like actions. Alright, we're gonna move this. We'll sort it out soon enough. Gut
角
feeling? Kaku. Whoops.
心持ち
Kokoromochi. Whoops. Oh. Oh, that's an interesting gut feeling mix. Gut feeling? I have no idea. Okay.
転がす
Korogasu. Uh,
苦手
nigate. Just bad or skilled, unskilled, maybe unskilled or hard to deal with. Okay, that's fine. They're all in the same vein, really. Right.
本物
Huh. Like live thing? Like living? Real thing? All of them. Like a real thing is often like a I guess like a real deal. Yeah, that's it's okay. Oh, I should add main thing. A main thing is still close enough.
金持ち
Kanemochi, which happens to be a Duolingo unit as well. Kanemochi, okanemochi. What do we have? Nyujo.
入所
I dendaku'd for no apparent reason there.
見送る
Gut feeling? Miokuru. Miokuru.
欠かす
Akasu. Or to like do without. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this was what I was thinking of. That's why I got those. Yeah, it kind of looks like it. Sort of. Right? Yol and it's not Chu, but what is that? Gut feeling? Nope. That doesn't work. I'm basically just thinking about pouring right now. But we have the kun. We'll come back to this.
乗り場
Noriba. I have a isn't this the no, this isn't it. This is a special case. We're gonna wait on that.
乗り物
Dorimomo. Transportation and or vehicles? Drive vehicles. That's fine. Oh. Yeah? No. Makeinu.
負け犬
Oh. Wait. I want to say this is special, but it's not, right? No, it is. Wait. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is.
仕事
Shigoto. Of course. Yeah, work. Sorry, I read the context sentence. In the end of the day, read the context. Shigoto. Oh, for work. I drew a blank. These things happen.
集中する
Yuchu suru. I think this is Mokuji. No, it's not Yeah, oh, it's probably Mokuji. No, wait,
見事
Mingoto. That is... Mingoto. See thing. No ki. Migoto na ki desu ne. Oh, is it like blended? Yeah. Context sentences. Even though the sentence was like a tree, it could have been anything. It could have been a green tree or a I don't know, big tree and whatnot. But the thing is, all the other adjectives are taken up. So splendid. And this is how it works sometimes. knowing what it is not and what it is can help as well. Again, much easier if you're watching anime because they could be pointing to a tree. It could look like a really glistening tree. It could be glowing. Or if you're reading a story, they were talking about a tree and describing how beautiful it was, and then you could probably get Mikoto as something like splendid, right? So yes, it would be easier if there were more context, for sure. Agreed. I didn't think that was the case. So is this is this the Alright, we're gonna skip. I have too many skips today, so it'll be a long day here. Sky Auto. What? Oh, wait.
使い方
Sky kata. That's fine. Uh-oh. What is that in the middle? That is not a kun. What is the... Oh, turn on for this? For whatever reason, I want to type this, so we're just going to type this. Stop it. I think that's a word though. Chu. I don't know what that is anymore. Oh, is it like middle? I don't know. I think we're getting into all our repeats soon, so we're gonna have to put on our thinking caps. I don't know what this is. Lid with elbow? Is that trash? Trash. Hmm. I don't know what I'm looking at anymore. This is gonna be rough. The heck? I feel like I know this. Dang it. I feel like I already know this. Hold up. Wait, did I already type? Oh no. Yeah, oh man. Alright, that's gonna take a while. Okay, so... Oh no, Qiu? Or not Qiu. This is Gong. Gong, what is Gong? Man, we have a lot. A lot. Uh, um... No way. No. Oh, I remember what the onyomi is for this, but that's not what we're looking for, right? I have no idea. Oh man, these are tough. What? Oh.
生物学
It's uh Moji. Was it literally? Yeah, literally. Okay, I'm pretty sure we're down to 17, so we're gonna have to figure this out now. This is like literally. I think I'm pretty sure it's mochi. Did I? Oh, I typoed. I typed oh instead of ooh. What? No, wait. What? Okay, that can't. What? Oh. No. It's not ooh. It's correct. Did I not? So mochi dori.
文字通り
Okay, mochi dori. That's weird. Oh, there's still more.
入学試験
入学試験. Oh, okay. Okay, hold up. Oh, like maybe like okay. Fair enough. Chikaishi. What do we have? Nanka shikaishi shitai na. Maka? tsuku kara. I see. How about... No. I'm having problems with the she. She is kind of drawing a blank. What's that sound like? Shikaishi. Returning someone has done, right? Done. Oh, revenge. I screwed up on this. Maybe like te suru.
決定する
Ete suru. All right. Oh, this one probably took the kun verse, right? Nope. Okay. It was the on. If it's very low, something too low. Oh, nice. It's so low that you get you start feeding people with tater tots. It's such a silly mnemonic. Okay, and then hoji suru.
保持する
I accidentally put u there. Hoji suru. Maybe like to maintain. Fine. Ooh, 10 more. This is ripe. Accept and attach. So we have accept, attach. Wait, is this no way, right? Oh no, just kidding. Oh, it could be like no. Okay, accept attach. Actually having problems with it. Yeah, ooh. So now we're doing process elimination, right? So the other one, it's the was the kun, but there is a rare on. But I don't think it's hatsu. What is another attach? I'm not quite. And then there's ju. G. Oh no, wait. No. That is yeah. Oh, Yes. Duolingo Japanese. Duolingo Japanese right now. When you're being accepted, IK or K. Yeah, Kaike. Or K. Oh no, sorry, Keitai. Keitai, right? I. Oh no, wait. Am I thinking of something else? Thinking of reception, right? If you're accepting. What? Keitai. Kike? No, not. Oh, I thought it was Kike. Oh no, wait, but that doesn't. I works on the right. No. Making this hard. We'll come back to this. I pretty sure it's reception. And then I know this as do, but is it like important or heavy or something? Or I think this is work. And then we have or. Oh. Oh no. Wait. This is special. It's like this is probably the silly one, right? I can only think of the silly one. So it's kata. Wait, it's like da arakajime.
あらかじめ
Arakajime. And what happened here? I don't know what happened here. Oh wait. No. Oh wait. I know. Oh, wait. Is it? Yeah. Right?
物語
Monogatari. Yeah. This actually deals with a personal memory. Tale. And then. Oh, this is currently being sold. But I don't know. Hatsu. I want to say like Hatsubaichu. Whoops, that's not how you... Ah! Hatsubai chu.
発売中
Oh, it is Hatsubai too. Like for sale now or something like that. Yeah, that's fine. They're kind of weak, but they're the very last one that I just recently moved. Probably the worst. This isn't Tamis. Probably Tamis.
試す
Okay, we're getting to the bad. We're getting to the womp womp ones. This is special. I don't remember how it's special. Hold on. These ones will probably likely get resurrected. Like, this will probably get resurrected with Atarashi or something, as an example of what I was talking about the burn review. But only when this gets added. So Atarashi will stay burned until this comes up again, and then this gets burned, and then I'll resurrect both Atarashi and this, because that I want to link them together, I think, because it helps me, I think, right? And I don't, it's Ara, but I don't remember why. I think Arata na, yeah, Arata
新た
or Arata, not the other way around, right? 레벨アップすると新たなステージに行くことができますよ。I think it's still like newly or something. Newly. Yeah. Context sentences. Helpful. For whatever reason, I just want to type the right here. Okay. That's not it. That's not it. What is making this difficult? Probably because it's not complicated. Doesn't have a lot of things going on. We have what power and oh, is it like indes? No? Oh, this is achievement, right? Oh. Oh, then this has got to be then, because I just got the, oh no. I think it might be the left side that is missing something. Yeah, I already tried that. Safe, calm, sell? Safe, calm, sell. Alright, we gotta write this. This one's really... I have no idea. It's the left character. Left character is probably the weakest. Oh, what am I talking about? It's not weak. Oh, it's not calm or safe. It's it's cheap. That's right, cheap. Oh no, that's fine. Cheap is oops. What? It's ya. Oh, probably like yasauri. Yasauri. What? Oh, I was pretty sure I was on point. Oh, no. This is modified, so I gotta still write this. This is pretty bad. Cheap sell plus D. Right? It's definitely discounted. Discount. And I think I had a typo. I'm pretty sure I had a typo. It's still yasu, right? Yasu and then uri.
安売り
Yeah, yasuri. Double kuns. So yasuri. That's why did I think this is safe? Because it does mean safe, right? This is discount. Oh, relax. Yeah, relax and safe, but in Japanese it also means cheap. Yeah. I totally forgot. Yasui. Of course, Yasui. Okay, and this we'll practice these two. These two are pretty rough. So what is this? I think it's accept plus attach. Oh yeah, attach. So usually the attach was introduced as t, but that would imply that this could use. But what was the attach? What was the on or attach? And the left side, I don't have the. I have a kun. Ooh. I also have ju. I think. I have ju as the on. But I'm pretty sure this is reception. But it's not kaike because that's not right. Kaike is in it like it's dealing with more of a different. Yeah, this is combining two things. So what was u for ukeru? Right, ukeru and tsukeru or something. So uketsuke. It's probably uketsuke.
受付
Which is reception or receptionist. Yikes. Yeah, uketsuke, I don't think that is the first time that popped up. So what are we doing? It's because it's double kun and it's double kun. It's also so special double kun and it's double on verb relation. It's a double verb relation and then reception, or I guess reception after. I already know what it means, but unfortunately I don't know how to read it or like have the reads, which happens sometimes. Most of the time, since I practice reading most of it, it's usually I know what it sounds like, I know what I'm imagining, but I can't interpret it. As in, write the English definition. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know what they're looking for. Okay, all right. Let's go over harmonics. It wasn't too bad. Today was okay. I was so much more in the groove of talking about talking about methods. Let's see. We have attach. Oh, that's a coincidence. Attach, valley, bass, drums, and zombie. Do our reads. Yogurt. Oh no. We don't need this anymore. What am I doing? So yo sho mon e hin hin su shu ko yu shin ako ne ni ek ten ten ji ten ji wara wara e ji han send help Ben Ben se do show can ki son zon sen o jo ne he han. All right, so I totally spaced out on. Oh my goodness, that is one very terrible writing. Okay, so we have yasu and an, right? Yasu and an, and I defaulted to an because of Chinese, so there is a somewhat selective bias here. Uh-oh. What was sell? No. My only thought was like something. Uh-oh. Alright, I gotta. Oh, it was fine. Oh, it was soldier on top, right? I got my heck. Why does it do this? Whatever. Okay. Oh wait. Maybe I can. I'm kind of curious now. What if I tap on this? Oops. It should have preserved this thing. That's kind of annoying. All right, so soldier. So what was this? Yeah, D. Right. So yasu. I totally spaced out on yasu. Feels bad, man. Yasu u was not spaced. U was fine. So yasuri discount. Basically sell cheap discount. These are not a problem. And then we would compare this to adding a pivot to yasui, which is cheap. That's our connection, right? So like for example here, yasuri, I would resurrect this one if yasui is in the pool of burned items. So that would be an example. I would resurrect both yasui and yasuri at the same time. Off of the weakness, whichever one is the weakness. If the weakness is uri, I would pick a second thing attached to uri, which uru would be a great example, right? Then if both of these are a problem, then I would take yasui, uru, and yasuru all resurrect at the same time, and then those three would be linked together and getting reinforced together. So then what happens is that those things are no longer disjointed. They're associated with each other using mechanically what WaniKani already does, right? That's the idea anyways. And usually I try to do that already. That's how I'm figuring out yasuri is discount. I'm already thinking that. But it can use for some reinforcement. And sometimes literally being reinforced and being held accountable is mechanically helpful, right? Kind of like writing, sort of. And now I'm having trouble uketsuke. Uketsuke is... That doesn't look correct. That doesn't look correct either. That looks weird. All right, I'm missing something. Oh, wait. Maybe. I'll have to look. Oops. Wait, no, yeah, that's fine. The kids get, which is reception. Receptionist. Let's double check. Oh, it's not foreman. It's folding. It's not foreman. Folding chair. Folding stool. Oh, and another thing that I quite like more about Hanzuhiro, instead of using the near rhyme system, is that you can write the stuff based on the mnemonics. So using mnemonics to describe the characters help with the writing, and I enjoy being able to write. So what I'm saying here is the way I remember the rough image of uke is that I remember cleats, crown, and a foreman. I thought it was a cleats, crown, and a foreman. And that's not because WaniKani does it. It's because Hanzuhiro does it. So I'm importing pretty much most of the things from Hanzuhiro, because Hanzuhiro practices a way to remember radicals, in which WaniKani dispenses oftentimes, and largely because they're broken up a lot more in the way it's a lot more disjointed between the two. But in the future, if I continue to have problems with uketsuke, like for writing and whatnot, I can prioritize and add like a different approach to it, which could be creating a mnemonic a mnemonic system that I've been adopting from another place. And how do we attach more things, lack of a better word, how do we attach more things to this? Pretty sure is, for both of these, is adding keru for their actions, which is to accept and or to be accepted. No, to accept. It's keru. To accept and also to attach. Let's double check. Yeah, ukeru, and then to attach, right? Or to attach something, right? Tsukeru. So that's where uketsuke comes from, and that's where I'm getting my things. So an example of this is if I continue to have trouble with receptionists, I would resurrect ukeru and tsukeru in the same thing, whichever comes last. So all three of them have to be burned before they are resurrected. And the very important, it's coming up soon. It's less than 13 days, so it's within 2 weeks now. The burn review. Why, in my opinion, is it important for me to have a burn review? It makes me choose what is related and what I need to review. Now, you can do this already. You don't have to wait for WaniKani. Lots of people have used a different adaptive way of doing this. They start in Anki deck. So I never used Anki before, like the actual platform, but I know the conceptual understanding of what Anki does. So you can do a meta level of maintenance. And for a lot of people, they intuit the idea coming from Anki to WaniKani or WaniKani to Anki is that you create a meta deck. The meta deck is of all the decks in which you define how the things are related and then add them to a second deck. And then that second deck is all the things you consciously provide context for each other. So for me, I'm doing it right now with WaniKani, whatever WaniKani is offering. But I technically could use another tool to sub-remember those things in a more lazy way, but efficient. Lazy but efficient. So for example, instead of manually thinking to myself every time I'm stuck on uketsuke, I'm like, okay, I'm going through this. Instead, you could practice it literally by placing those things in a different deck and then having them associate with each other. You can also literally write notes in uketsuke, right? Uketsuke, and say, oh yeah, and then they provided some of that, right? WaniKani does describe, oh, do you remember uke? In ukeru, and then if you remember tsukeru, or you can literally do it. So the idea of the burn review is I'm actualizing it. I'm picking out the ones myself. So the act of doing it raises more attention to it. You can have a system do it and trust that the system will give you the repetition, or you can do both. And usually I tend to do both. So burning items can be a passive process, or it can be an active one. And for me, just talk like right this moment, just talking about these right this moment. When it comes back around another 3 months, I'm probably going to remember it because I spent a lot of time using these as examples of burn reviews. So in the future, when I'm going to burn my first item, I'm focusing. All right, thanks, Loopy. That was kind of weird. Okay, so that is where we're trying to imitate here, right? Trying to create where this WaniKani may be able to tell you some loose ways that you either should remember something or retain something, or like maybe a year or two with disuse. However, that's understanding if the methodology is able to do all of it very consistently. And for myself, I see that it might not be. So I like to make as many part of interacting with the tool as active as possible. So even something as simple as burning something can be more than what it is. I personally have a little bit of a disagreement of having things burn because you don't see it. It can be extended with a glass ceiling of 1 year or something. However, I can kind of see the appeal of showing that there's an end to it. Right. Anyways. Yeah. Once again, that's the end of WaniKani for today. So if you're gonna watch this later, arigatou gozaimasu. Once again, I love discussion, opportunities to discuss about things, regardless of when the time presents itself. I keep telling myself that I want to keep it a little bit brief, and it is genuinely briefer than when I take time to go over this stuff. So most of the stuff that I mentioned today, again, thanks to Mark Sands for the opportunity to practice in advance. Most of the stuff I'm going to say was not present in my 100-day review of my experience with WaniKani. I basically use WaniKani vanilla and integrate and bring in as much stuff as possible without mechanically being part of the routine and whatnot. And then in the 200 days, which will be another month from now, right? We have what, 36 days or 35 days, not including the day. So we have 35 days, a little over a month now before I do the review, and it will be a very long one. It will be, I haven't even decided if it's going to be a two-parter, but it'll be 5 hours or longer to cover that stuff. And it's not necessarily attempting to summarize for the benefit of being brief for other people. But if you're curious, you can always like skip around and look at it. It's largely for myself. I think practicing the things I observe, recording the things I observe, listening to myself, holding myself accountable is a practice in instruction and demonstration. I don't find myself much like language learning. I think people can appreciate this. If you're not eventually going to use what you learn, despite learning all of it, like you can even be incredibly fluent in Japanese, you get rusty, right? Or even speaking for the first time or becoming fluent. Well, I like to learn Japanese and Chinese and Spanish while also reinforcing the very thing that motivates me to do any of these things in the first place. So no, Japanese fluency, Chinese fluency, Spanish fluency is not my goal. It is a wonderful, welcome consequence of primarily focusing on the pursuit of academic education, especially one of intellectual education. I'm not going to be doing flips or incredible high act feats of physical endurance and whatnot. Largely, I like to talk about things in an explicit way to demonstrate that being active in the moment can have a lot of catharsis, it have a lot of potential, and it's a skill that critical thinking and problem solving skills are something that makes... I can't describe this to other people. I can't ask them to empathize with me. The idea is doing them and finding your version of this creates a lifetime of conscious security. It makes you feel competent enough that you'll gain satisfaction and learning rewards from most things you tackle. However, despite whatever the glass ceiling is or the efficiency or whatnot, you make it work. And that's probably what I'm going to continue doing, regardless of if it's talking about video games, controversial topics, the idea, decision making, right? Investing, financial stuff, talking and discussing, having disagreements with other people, developing communication skills, or developing imaginary skills that other people believe don't exist, like emotional intelligence, charisma, right? Charisma, wisdom. In fact, I actually think individuals who don't, but those things are corollary when they correlate and coincidentally align with each other. Those who think that emotional intelligence doesn't exist also probably think that wisdom is the summation of people's intelligence. Wisdom and intelligence are very differential from each other, but they are involved in each other. So knowing a lot of things does not make you emotionally intelligent. Knowing a lot of things doesn't make you very wise. Emotional intelligence and the ability to be cultured, right, or having the ability to empathize, exudes a lot of elements of wisdom. Knowing to help someone requires wisdom. Knowledge, in my opinion, might be sufficient sometimes when you're borrowing other people's experience, not experience of your own. And you may have limited success for yourself most of the time because you have to trust wholeheartedly the experience of someone else wholesale instead of being able to integrate and interact with the experiences other people are sharing and the experiences of your own. So yes, there can be inconsistencies because the last time I checked, most people, the older they get, the less and less likely that they're like another person. So I think that consistency leads to some side effects. And one of those side effects is a great perk because it's often viewed as positive. The positive thing is the security that you know, yeah, a lot of people say this is hard, this is easy, but I can make it work, right? And I can not only make it work, I can spend time showing how I make it work for other people and hopefully encourage them to make it work for themselves. I think that, in my opinion, is what originally made content creators and the pioneers of content creators and the internet a wonderful place. It was a place where there's a normalized understanding that the best is not the end all be all, but creation and the ability to be able to do things because you can is what filled the internet with content in the first place, or originally. Nowadays, though, it has undergone a renaissance of optimization to the point where facts are cheap. And what I mean by that, facts are cheap, I'm not talking about facts are not useful. I'm talking about facts are easily accessible. There's no longer a need to invest and peruse, scrutinize, and understand how facts are being used. Facts are now cheap, easy, and accessible. So you can garner facts and data. You can even create and fabricate data at a rapid rate. You can even limit and create echo chambers, excluding facts and only seeing facts based on your behavior. So facts are easy, cheap, and convenient. And because, in my opinion, much like what I mentioned earlier, that facts are easy, cheap, and convenient, one can be easily using them to make decisions that are irrelevant to those facts. Like my kanji example. And then you have like 4 different people talking about, well, do you really need to know 4,000 kanji? Some people might, some people might not. The devil is in the methodology or the details in some case, but I would say the methodology, because the person that goes about determining whether it is useful or not is in their methodology, not in the end thing saying, I like 4,000 kanji, I like 3,000 kanji. That doesn't explain anything other than one number is smaller than the other, right? And then that's where, in my opinion, it has become oversimplified. I know 3,000 kanji, someone knows 4,000 kanji. Since 4,000 is greater than 3,000, that other person who knows 4,000 must be better at Japanese. Right? Data. Data creates a starting place to determine a interpretation. But since it's so cheap and accessible, you can collect a lot of data to confirm through selective bias whatever you want to believe. It's not as cheap and not as convenient to null hypothesis test and or delve into methodology, because the internet cuts all of that out nowadays. If you're a science student, or when you're in class reading a scientific article, if you're one of those who believe it's faster to read the introduction, maybe like 2 paragraphs of the introduction, skip all the way to the conclusion and look at the results section if the conclusion is interesting. If the conclusion is interesting, and then you step back and only go back to the results, then that's what I'm talking about. That is the workflow of the internet. You read the introduction to see if it's relevant to your question at hand. You skip to the conclusion to see if you agree and or interested in the conclusion. Then you go back and look at the results and you infer everything else. All the methodology, all the things are inferred. Rarely is it asking yourself, did the methodology lead to that result in which it explains the conclusion? You're not evaluating them. And you predicate your entire decision making, in my opinion, a large majority of decision making, based on that leap of logic. You leaped from introduction to conclusion. And it's not to the fault of the people, because in my opinion, a vast majority of content creators cut that out. It's too long. Methodology is too long. And I don't think they are at fault either, because that's how fast the internet goes. So if you're competing with each other, ain't got time for methodology. Case in point, whatever I said today, I'm probably gonna say at least 50 times over for the next 50 people. And what happens? Probably going to continue saying that, because until the internet has a paradigm shift, this stuff is not important. It's not important to anyone. I think I'm very comfortable with the reality that if I'm talking to someone 9 out of 10 times, they're telling me a result that they don't understand what it means. And it's because many enough people understand that to be true, and therefore it is. as opposed to discussing what that means to them and how it's relevant to me. Yeah, that's kind of what language learning has taught me. Video games is very similar. You exchange out for what is the best method to what is the best game, because its story is awesome. Nice. I don't know what that means. The gameplay is old but new. I don't know what that means. Oh, the game is repetitive, but repetitive enough. I don't know what that means. Right? So oftentimes when you look at journalism and whatnot, they're opinion piece. So I have a suggestion for that too. Go and find someone you resonate with in every detail of their transparency. So if you have a journalist who you really like and they spend a lot of time explaining what they do in their off time, invest in the person parasocially. If that person really is close to you in many different ways, it strengthens the odds that their opinion piece will help you in decision making. But the internet doesn't focus or emphasize learning about people. They emphasize looking at people as a set of data points. So when someone isn't popular, clearly you can't resonate with someone that's popular because you're looking for someone that is popular. So, and the internet runs on numbers. So even if there is a person out there who does something professionally very well, you might not ever even see them because it runs on popularity. Data doesn't distinguish the appropriateness or application of human goals. Data runs on data. So if you're coincidentally in the majority, then awesome. I love Clair Obscur. The Clair Obscur is the game of the year, in my opinion, of 2025. Just so happens, a lot of other people thought so too. Clair Obscur was my game of the year contender when it was first announced last year, because I happened to coincidentally love its presentation, its mechanics, and what I understand about the current trend in the consumer market or video games. So I followed it. That doesn't mean it would have been guaranteed to be game of the year in 2025. So, but the internet can make you think that, right? I think that I just wanted to offer something, a blind spot, right? I am very, very cognizant of my own blind spot as a human being, much like everyone else. The idea is, are you satisfied with your results all the time? Are you having consistent success? Success in which you feel security and being challenged but unwavered. Like, I take on challenges every day, I suppose. I mean, I started with Duolingo. If you wanted a challenge in using Duolingo and streaming, pick up Duolingo Japanese and tell me how your experience is. We can even talk shop, right? Pick up WaniKani, do WaniKani in front of public people, like stream WaniKani, demonstrate your process. And I would love to welcome you, as most of my end comments these days. I welcome anyone who pick up WaniKani, share with other people, do as I do, but make it your own. And we can share those experiences and talk shop or do anything else. Share your Anki process. Share your, despite copyright and stuff, if you found a way to stream anime and not get slapped by every single anime publisher, share that. If I see that it is possible, I will probably do that too, right? If you believe your method is so good, share it with the world. I think sharing methods, sharing processes is underrated right now. People don't have time for it, not necessarily because they literally don't have time for it. I honestly think they mentally do not make time for it. Like, or accessibility is non-existent. So who has time to sit down and invest in a person when you can get the download and the TLDR from 300 people in the same amount of time? Like, well, the difference between having a life skill and a hobby is that. I think that's a really contentious point, but my hobbies are very not treated like tenuous things that stay, like, are temporary. My hobbies are my life skills. Most of the stuff I do are life skill oriented. So if you're not willing to invest in language learning as a life skill or having Japanese part of your life, I think it's very reflective in the way you treat the learning process of language learning. Like, if you think jumping from the next fad to the next fad, or the next trendy thing to the next trendy thing, and it gets you to where you go, awesome. And I hope at the same time you discover, or to all those people out there, discover how to make the Japanese you learn to be part of your life. Because life skills require maintenance. Hobbies do not. You can drop a hobby and maybe feel insecure that you wasted your time with a hobby. I don't really know how that works for a lot of people who cope, but that's coping. My hobbies, regardless if I'm doing them or not, has come back. Like, what this reminds me of a puzzle game. I'll let you, as a rhetoric, I'll let you decide how I'm treating WaniKani as a puzzle game. My joys with puzzle games involve very similar things. I learned science like it was a puzzle game, right? So hopefully your lives are as dynamic as this, because I genuinely believe it leaves people very excited about their lives and being interested in other people's lives. So for that, I welcome anyone who's interested. Until then, for those who are only interested in Japanese, minasan mata ne. I'm gonna get up, walk around, do a little stretch. It's been a little bit slightly too long. I'll get my blood flowing and I'll be back for Hanzihiro. Thank you.